Okay, thank you. Hi. A few years ago, I founded an organization called the Workplace Abuse Experts. It's kind of my own creation. And I wrote a small book. It's sort of a pamphlet available on Amazon where I divide what I call the psychosocial dynamics of workplace bullying abuse into 4 corners. And it goes like this. Corner number 1, personality disorders. Many workplace bullies have, as Dr. Andrea Barnes would say, a diagnosable personality disorder such as psychopathy, sociopathy, or what we call cluster B personality disorders. And in these disorders, they lack empathy, they lack boundaries, they never feel they're responsible for any of their own behavior. And so in the workplace, this makes them ruthless, absolutely ruthless. And there's many people who've written books on this, Dr. Romney, Ross Rosenberg, I could cite you the sources. They are very destructive to their workplaces, but they will always turn around and play the victim from all of the destruction. It's never their fault. And often these people are pathologically envious and insecure, so they select what we call targets, right? And so why would someone bully someone in the workplace? Number 1, maybe they see that person as a threat. Dr. Gary Namey of the Workplace Bullying Institute writes on this. Sometimes they do it for entertainment or projection. Number 2, they're personally destructive. Well, I could give you lists of names of suicides from this. Kenny Sutner, I talked to his mom, Jay Almeida. There's plenty of these. So it also destroys families. For example, I worked in education, and if you didn't like someone in education and you wanted them gone, you just started rumors that they were dangerous around kids or they were sleeping with the office. Well, the problem is not only would that destroy their career, it could destroy their marriages too, but who cares? The bully gets away with it. 3, financial costs. They are extremely financially costly. Dr. Robert Sutton of Stanford University writes about this. You check out his books. So does Gary Namey from the Workplace Bullying Institute. The problem is if these people cannot work, they want to work, but they can't because they're bullied out, they're targeted, they have to live off the taxpayer. So there you go, taxpayers. And 4, legal ramifications. Bullying right now may not be illegal, but many of the things they are do. For example, if they spike your food with something and you get sick, that could be criminal assault. But they don't recognize that because these people don't believe laws apply to them. This is a real problem. And in my book, I've cited plenty of sources, names, which I could get back to you guys later if you're interested on this. I've talked to Matt Patness, Claire Hunt, Deb Falsoy, and many people who have spearheaded this. And I have plenty of information. So if this is something you guys are wanting to pursue later on, please contact me. I'm in Texas, but this is something I've spent years researching, writing on. And so, I just don't want to see any more casualties of this. I don't know how it's going to play out, but something about this has to be done. It has to be done. It's too much damage,
Thank you very much for listening to me. I'm in Texas as well. I'm honored to speak before you today because about a quarter of my heritage hails from the Commonwealth. I am speaking in support of S1291 and S1347, the Workplace Psychological Safety Act. I am a workplace bullying expert. I've created a YouTube channel about workplace bullying with over 4,000 subscribers and over 200 videos. I've also written about 100 pages, over 100 pages about workplace bullying that is published on my website. Workplace bullying is a devastating public health crisis that destroys the lives of thousands, if not millions, of victims in every profession in every country in the world, but it remains poorly understood. Workplace bullying does not govern time, pay, or physical work conditions. It is also not a personality conflict. It is not a conflict any more than a hit and run is a conflict. Workplace bullying is a one-way, unprovoked aggression with intent to inflict psychological harm that is deeply personal and emotional in nature. Workplace bullying is also not a necessary rite of passage by which targets of workplace bullying should prove themselves and show them what they're made of. It is an astronomical waste of time, money, resources, and energy that costs organizations and society millions of dollars every year. The economic impact of workplace bullying is well documented, and part of the damage is health-related. Targets of workplace bullying often develop long-term and even lifelong symptoms of CPTSD, depression, anxiety, addiction, self-mutilation, eating disorders, sleep disturbances, poor physical health outcomes, and even suicidal ideation. Workplace bullying shaves years off your life. The ultimate result of workplace bullying is death. Homicide in the form of workplace shootings and suicide of both targets and bystanders. And I think that is as serious as a heart attack. The great irony of workplace bullying is that almost always targets of workplace bullying are high performing, and that's exactly why they get bullied. They're intelligent, educated, experienced, skilled, and usually very nice and well-liked people with innovative ideas for products and services that could be benefiting all of us as we speak, but they are being denied the opportunity to share with the public what they have to offer because someone somewhere has arbitrarily decided that empathy is weak and cruelty is strength. If you've read a newspaper lately, I'm sure you understand now more than ever, we need the contributions of the best and the brightest. A world on fire needs all hands on deck, not some senseless hazing ritual so that a minority of insecure, immature narcissists can momentarily feel better about the fact that they hate themselves. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Oliveira and Chairman McMurtry and the committee members. My name is Janice Cardinelli. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to testify in support of the Workplace Psychological Safety Act, S1291 and S1347. I founded a community 3.5 years ago to address the toxic workplaces that many hospitality people face daily. I have found that too many people do not feel safe or trust their employers. This is a macro problem across North America that if not addressed will continue to fester. The mental health of our communities and our people should be something that we take very seriously. I urge you to vote for this bill and for human sustainability. I believe that without it, the trust, safety that we should acknowledge and respect is just not being, dealt with properly. And there are a lot of people who have already died by suicide from the type of verbal abuse that they have had to succumb to. And as I listen to all of the different people here today, it reinforces in my mind that, America has a huge problem when it comes to the leadership, that they're not meeting people where they are today, and that, these leaders have big egos instead of worrying or being kind or looking to create a caring culture for all of the employees.
Dear lawmakers, my name is Ann Carr, and I'm the co-bill director of the Massachusetts Workplace Psychological Safety Act, S1291, S1347. I testified first here about 10 years ago for the Healthy Workplace Bill. I support some form of this bill being passed. I was mobbed out of my job about 15 years ago, and since then I've made it part of my life's work to help expose workplace bullying and mobbing, this phenomena, to help targets through support groups, and to advocate for this legislation. Mobbing has been identified and made illegal in many nations, to include the UK, Canada, Sweden, South Korea, Australia, Spain, among a few, but not in the United States, except recently Puerto Rico, and I have no idea why. Had I worked in one of those nations, I could have turned to the government to report my abuse. Likely a tribunal of some sort would be held to find out why a teacher such as myself, who was working for 23 years, who was certified in 8 grades, 3 subjects, who ran the 5th grade in the science department, who ran after school and summer programs in the inner city, who taught reading, writing, math, and science, and had exemplar performance reviews, and was given a $10,000 a year raise when I was called into my principal's office and told I was underpaid, 12 months later to be fired. I worked with a narcissist whose goal was to get me fired, and much of what, I forgot the gentleman's name who was talking about that behavior. It's a very unfamiliar behavior to me, but it's been widely researched. The government needs to stop toxic workplaces from ruining the health and livelihood of trusted employees like myself. I believe in human rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I calculate since I stopped working quite a while ago, over a decade ago, about $350,000 in income tax would have gone back to the economy. I haven't worked in a long time. I gave up my career. I was politely blacklisted after I was mobbed out of my job. So hopefully Massachusetts will pass this law this time around, because 10 years at this is getting to be a lot. Thank you so much.
First of all, I'd like to address it. I'd like to say good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. I sincerely appreciate your time and consideration for this opportunity to speak before you. My name is Marnie Allward, and I'm here to speak in support of Senate Bill 1291 and Senate Bill 1347, the Workplace Psychological Safety Act. This bill isn't just a policy, it's protection, it's dignity, and it's survival. I want to begin by saying I never imagined I'd be here before you testifying how my life was shattered, not by accident, not by illness, but by the actions of my own employer. I worked for a Fortune 100 company, a pharmacy benefit management company, CVS Specialty, a subsidiary of CVS Health, a company that promotes the core values of empathy, compassion, inspiring trust, and mental health awareness. They proudly ran a campaign called Stamp Out the Stigma. They encouraged us to speak openly about mental health as long as we didn't speak about how they were causing the damage. At the time, my husband with 26 years was dying. He had just been diagnosed with a terminal illness, and I was already grieving the death of my son. We depended on the health insurance I received through my job, and so I even endured psychological abuse, gaslighting, and isolation, and I stayed. Even though I received the corporate recognition of the Vice President personally exhibiting these core values, that personal acknowledgement only served to fuel the fire that in the already toxic work environment. I stayed through the whispers that I was the team member that everyone loved to hate. I stayed through being locked out of meetings, being denied training, denied promotions, and robbed of my paid time off. I stayed as my personal conversations were shared without my consent. I stayed as the HR launched and the Code of Ethics Department launched an investigation, and they told me to take FMLA so that things were sorted out, and nothing was ever sorted out. The abuse escalated, and my suffering was ignored. When I returned from leave, I was denied access to my job. I was harassed off the clock. My wages were tampered with, and then I was fired. And I wasn't fired for poor performance, not for misconduct, but because I told the truth and I had proof. The company that preached empathy and mental health awareness canceled my husband's insurance, revoked my pay, stripped me of my livelihood, and discarded me. I lost my income, I lost my stability, I lost my ability to afford legal counsel. I was granted the right to sue by the EEOC, but what good is that when I was broke and broken? I was filed bankruptcy, I relied on food pantries to survive, I applied for utility assistance from the government, and I was trying to keep my head above water. This was just a toxic workplace. It was an institutional abuse. Not one single person was ever held accountable. That's why I'm standing here today, just not to share my story, but to demand change. Workplace abuse is not a personal failure, it's a structural injustice. It robs people of their health, their income, and their hope. Bill 1291 and 1347 would protect people like me and the countless others that are suffering in silence right now. Because we shouldn't have to choose between our dignity and our paycheck. Because corporate slogans are meaningless when accountability is absent. Because no one should be left behind just for speaking up. I support the Workplace Psychological Safety Act, and I ask you and urge you to do the same. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being part of the solution.
This is my fourth time testifying.
Fourth time?
Yep, done video conference at one job, had to wait till like 4 o'clock when my boss wasn't there anymore. I'm a nurse. We're in trouble. We've been in trouble. I have never seen a career path that has proof of bullying in their industry, and they don't know how to stop it. It's not just one time it happens to you, it happens to you multiple times. I was very lucky to be on the panel for the American Nurse Association. I got to talk to 286 nurses across this country. 86% of them are bullied. And I want to, and I'm sorry, I didn't say good afternoon, Chairman and people. Sorry about that. I didn't know I had ADD till a couple years ago. And I have what's called focal dystonia, meaning that my hand doesn't do what I need it to do. I'm a little bit slower, but I can do my job, okay? Which they don't like anymore. They don't like customer service. Like, how are you doing today, Representative Hannah Bowen? How are you doing? Are you having any pain? What can I get you? And then I become a waitress and I do what I need to do and I try to help you. But it's not fast enough, okay? And I've worked multiple places. The one I want to talk about, and I always have a different story, okay? So the biggest problems with nurses is that the hospitals have become a huge network. Partners, right away, over 17. I resigned because I was being bullied, because if I get fired, I can't work at any of those. I'm from Western Mass. The thing I'm going to talk about Bay State, I can't work anywhere there, okay? There's a number of places. It's not just them. So what happened was, when I started working for Bay State, I originally was I was originally a COVID swabber. Then I went to Daily 5A, which is the neuromed search tele floor. The year that I worked there, I worked 2,710 hours. Every hour of that, I was bullied. I had to work to achieve a income that would provide me with a loan. I walked away from a $600,000 loan to fix my house because my tenant flushed tampons down the toilet and flooded my home with sewage, because there's no laws to protect us there either. But anyhow, so this is happening over and over again, and I hate to tell you, I'm on unemployment, I'm on food stamps. It is an embarrassment to me. I have 2 bachelor degrees. So I'm all done with floor because we're not medicating our people properly. We're letting them die in pain. We're not medicating people with cancer. We're not medicating people with chronic illnesses. That's a problem. We're all on that bus. It's just a number of times when we get there. And they're afraid to use their narc scripts. We have to change that. It's out of, there's no compassion. I had one provider tell me that, too bad, they just have to do what I want. There's no power. There's no power. And we try to advocate for all of our patients. And this is everywhere. I want to say thank you for your time. And this is for the Psychological Act, the S1291 and S1347. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for.
And I'm supporting the Workplace Psychological Safety Act. I was hired as a contractor to work for the government, for the U.S. Army, and going to keep the company aside, but it will be included in the letter. I'm sharing my story as a survivor of workplace retaliation, harassment, emotional trauma, and financial hardship. I was unjustly and wrongfully fired from my job shortly after I came forward to report illegal activity. Speaking up cost me everything. From the beginning of my employment, I was subjected to constant psychological abuse by the very people I trusted to uphold integrity and decency. No one intervened. No one protected me. Even though it has been over a year since I left that toxic environment, the torment hasn't stopped. Those individuals have continued to spread vicious, calculated lies about me, manipulating others to harass and psychologically torment me. even using their vehicles to intimidate and threaten me in public spaces. Their cruelty follows me everywhere I go. In an effort to reclaim some sense of peace, I made the difficult decision to relocate to another state only to be continue harassed. The same cycle began, strangers whispering and acting as agents, the same psychological warfare. It feels inescapable. It's tough. I'm being hunted by shadows I can't shake. For over a year now, I live in a constant state of fear and distress. I haven't had a single day where I have felt safe or at ease. And whilst reported everything to various authorities, I've been met with silence and inaction. No one has stepped in to protect me. Now you can imagine walking each day with the dread of being followed, unable to find a moment of solitude, constantly looking over my shoulder. This unrelenting harassment has caused panic attacks, chronic worry, sleep disturbances, and even physical symptoms like chest pain. Beyond the emotional toll, the perpetrators have manipulated others into believing false narrative, further deepening my isolation and making it difficult to trust anyone. I feel trapped in a cycle of abuse without clear path to safety, peace. The psychological consequences have been devastating, and the lasting damage to my well-being cannot be overstated. I don't know how much longer I can carry this. I'm trying to hope that someone will help, that someone will listen to me, and I just want to be safe and in one piece and have my life back. That's all.
All right.
I hope someone find interesting to care about my story. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman, and honorable members of the Joint Committee. My name is Erica Karp, and I am the Co-Bill Director for End Workplace Abuse here in Massachusetts, and a Massachusetts resident. I'm here with other members of the coalition, and I'm here with my daughter, who is also advocating for workplace Senate Bill 1291 and Senate Bill 1347, the Workplace Psychological Safety Act, legislation urgently needed here in Massachusetts. We know how harmful bullying is to children. Advocates fought for years before Massachusetts passed its anti-bullying law in 2010, long after almost every state in the nation already enacted these protections. It took over 12 years of advocacy and multiple legislative attempts. Now we must ask, why is it taking this long to protect adults? Workplace bullying is not about a difficult manager. It's not about a stressful job. Is it about the abusive misuse of power through lies, gaslighting, humiliation, and isolation? It causes severe psychological and physical harm, including anxiety, PTSD, job loss, and even in cases of suicide. Mobbing, when a leader or a group engages others to join in the abuse, is especially devastating. It breaks a person emotionally, socially, and professionally. Workplace bullying and mobbing, it sounds like what happens in movies, until it happens to you and you live it. Massachusetts has an opportunity to be a leader in protecting the rights of their citizens and to be the first in the nation to stand up against all forms of hate and bullying. And here's the hard truth. Childhood bullying doesn't stop when people graduate. Schoolyard bullies grow up and enter the workforce, often in caring professions like education, healthcare, and social services, where the impact can be especially harmful. Massachusetts has laws protecting workers from sexual harassment and discrimination based on protected classes. But these protections do not cover psychological bullying outside these categories. Thousands endure this abuse with no legal recourse, often forced out of their jobs without justice or accountability. The consequences extend beyond the workplace. When targets lose their jobs or suffer health problems, many turn to state-funded programs like Mass Health, TANF, and SNAP. These costs fall on the taxpayers, not employers who allow abuse to continue unchecked. Workplace bullying is today's silent epidemic, what sexual harassment was 20 years ago. Widely recognized, deeply harmful, yet ignored by the law. This silence allows toxic environments to persist, harming individuals, families, and communities. You have the power to pass legislation that puts people before silence, acknowledging that bullying harms real lives and affirms that no human is disposable. Passing this bill sends a clear message that Massachusetts values the dignity and health of every worker, will hold bullies accountable, reduce turnover and healthcare costs, and protect taxpayers from hidden financial burdens. This human rights, public health, and economic issue demands urgent attention, and I plead that you support these bills to help make our workplaces safe, respectful, and just. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the Joint Committee on Labor and Workforce Development. My name is Jacqueline Garner, and I'm speaking before you today in unwavering support of the Workplace Psychological Safety Act. I speak not only as a former employee who endured the profound impact of workplace bullying, but also as a passionate advocate for mental health in every professional environment. For nearly 7 years, I poured my heart and soul into my work at a behavioral health clinic. It was more than just a job, it was a calling for me. I received countless accolades from management, peers, and most importantly, from the patients and families I had the privilege to serve. My dedication knew no bounds when it came to advocating for their well-being. When a supervisory position opened, I didn't apply, not because I lacked the extensive knowledge or experience, I certainly have both, but because my passion lay in direct patient care. Instead, the role went to someone with less experience and no understanding of our complex system, chosen, it seemed, primarily for her popularity with clinic management. It wasn't long before my professional world began to unravel. As a lead on my team, I was responsible for ensuring continuity during my supervisor's absences. Yet this new supervisor consistently demanded tasks outside my established duties. When her demands conflicted with my assigned responsibilities, she would retaliate by bringing in other supervisors and even clinic management to publicly berate me in front of my colleagues. These attacks targeted those of us who possessed the very knowledge and expertise she lacked. My pleas for help fell on deaf ears. When Human Resources was informed, their response was dismissive. They stated that they don't feel that this is an HR situation. Even a direct appeal to the company's CEO yielded nothing but empty promises. The emotional toll was immense. Even now, years later, I still hear from former colleagues that the supervisor continues to spread malicious comments about me. This persistent harassment led to profound decline in my mental and emotional health. I lost energy, plunged into depression, and my passion for my work was extinguished by the constant anxiety of anticipating her next attack. Today, I am undergoing mental health treatment for acute anxiety, stress, and burnout. The tragic consequences of this unchecked bullying wasn't just my personal suffering. It was an undeniable impact on our patients. I firmly believe that my patients and their families were deprived of the full care and support they deserved, all because a supervisor prioritized targeting knowledgeable employees over focusing on the vital needs of those in our care. The very people we were there to serve became collateral damage in a toxic workplace. This is why Senate Bill S1347, the Workplace Psychological Safety Act, is so critically important. Had this legislation been in place, it would have created a framework for accountability, holding supervisors, management, and the company itself responsible for the damaging treatment my colleagues and I endured. Someone would have been held accountable. And just maybe with that safeguard, I could have continued to provide the essential services and support that the most vulnerable adults in our society desperately need and are entitled to. Thank you.
Wow. So I am a firm believer in the universe, and I feel like this is a universal moment. I did not find out about this until about 2 days ago. I heard other people say that. When you called me the first time, I literally lost connection as you called my name, and I did not think I would be called. I am a resident of New Jersey, actually, so I'm not fortunate enough to be with you there in Massachusetts. But I do think this is my moment to share something that I did not intend to share today. I actually work in the legal profession. I am a paralegal of probably over 20 years, 22 years approximately in experience. I work as a corporate paralegal now, and worked for a company that I loved. I loved my company to the extent that I still do love my company. How about that? I love them to the extent that I still love them. I think it is a wonderful place to work with the right guardrails, with the right provisions. Unfortunately, I didn't have those. I worked there 7 years. I tell people that the way that I describe it is that when you boil a frog, you don't put them in hot water. You put them in cool or tepid water, and you increase the temperature until you boil them so that they don't know, they don't hop out. And that's what I did. I stayed with loyalty and dedication. I don't toot my own horn. I'm not always the brightest in the room, but I am bright and I am motivated, and I worked really hard. And I worked all of that time under extreme duress and extreme bullying and extreme harassment, which continued and grew and I was told that my boss was never going to leave, that she was connected and she was protected and she was never going to leave, and I needed to just get along. And when it finally got to the point that she went out on vacation for 2 months after I had reported the bullying, because I was told I had to, by legal counsel, who I also reported to. And they told me, you have to report it, because if you don't report it, we will, because now that's the law. You have to report it. I reported it, went on record. We had a kumbaya moment. She went on vacation for 2 months, came back, and told me I had made her look incompetent in front of her boss. After that, a year to the day, she started documenting, harassing, bullying, giving assignments that were just, there was no way to win. And I knew that. And I asked for corrective action. I was not given that. And a year later, I was let go. In the meantime, high blood pressure, anxiety attacks. This committee and these testimonies, everybody who's testifying, thank you so much, because you are making me feel like I am not alone anymore. Anxiety attacks, high blood pressure, 3 medications, and finally, I was diagnosed less than a year ago with breast cancer, which my doctor also says is not unrelated, because we don't have breast cancer, nor do I have the BRCA gene. But I do have breast cancer and have had a double mastectomy less than a year ago. So this is not, no one is isolated when we speak out, but we do need to speak out because it is tremendous. And the effects, I'm seeing them more and more across all kinds of professions. So I hope that you will hear this. I hope that Massachusetts will be the first to really enact something meaningful so that people can be treated as humans too. And that's the other thing. I did go to an attorney and they wanted to turn it into, are you a protected class? Well, I am, but you know what? I'm also a human. And humans should not treat other humans this way. Thank you for hearing me out. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. To the Honorable Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, my name is Jacqueline McGraw. I've been a Massachusetts resident and a former Horizon Worlds Builder Support Engineer at Meta Reality Labs, the division of Meta responsible for its virtual reality or VR technologies, including the Meta Quest headset and the Horizon Worlds platform. After raising safety concerns of working in an unsafe virtual working environment and being laid off as a result of workplace bullying, I'm here to testify about my experience and speak the truth on record that is often left unsaid. Psychological safety isn't just about feeling comfortable at work. It's about being able to speak up when something is wrong without fear of punishment and without being incentivized to stay silent. When Meta laid off both my husband and me in 2022 after we reported unresolved safety concerns, we were each offered tens of thousands of dollars in severance, which we refused, knowing that accepting meant not just giving up our voice, but others who might never get the chance to speak for themselves. We could no longer trust Meta Reality Labs to draw its own ethical boundaries. The psychological harm we experienced wasn't theoretical. My job was to help creators build games and social experiences on a spatial VR platform. To support these creators, I needed to be present in the digital spaces myself, playing the experiences, observing player behavior during interactions, and studying how people responded to one another in real time to help others build games. And what I witnessed over and over was horrific, not just a one-time fluke, but process negligence beyond justification. There was no age verification, no parental controls, and no real moderation access across free-to-play games. It wasn't a question of if abuse would occur, it was a matter of how often and who would be left unprotected at this time. What blanket attack or form of harassment would be marked as within Meta's community standards? When an employee encountered the harm first, or a player, a child, or a parent? Some of these players and employees are being told to kill themselves daily online. There were no meaningful protections for them, no proactive concerns about their safety, and certainly none for us as employees. The platform's designs made these situations not just possible, but predictable. I support Senate 1291 and 1347 because together they address the urgent need for enforceable workplace protections against psychological harm, bullying, and retaliation, especially in industries like tech, where these issues go so often ignored or hidden. More than anything, they reinforce something simple but urgent. If we want the technologies we build to be safe for the public, then the safety has to start with the people building them. Because if employees aren't protected during the production process, the people using these platforms never will be. I'm not here as a libertarian, a Republican, or a Democrat. I'm here as someone who's lived and worked in these digital systems, someone who was building on the first Oculus dev kit nearly a decade ago, and who knows what happens when companies keep telling us to wait until it's convenient, until it's profitable, until no one's looking, or they just forget. Let Massachusetts lead by example by passing the aforementioned bills. Let us say clearly and without delay that safety and accountability start where every product does, with people. Thank you for the opportunity to testify remotely and for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions and welcome any follow-ups from the committee at a later time.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. I'm speaking today, and my name's Mark Bolduck. I'm retired today. I'm speaking in support of the Workplace Psychological Safety Act. My experience goes back many years, and there's some much judicial abuse here as well. But my first testimony was in 2017 in support of the Massachusetts Healthy Workplace Bill. It outlined my wrongful, constructive, and discriminatory dismissal designed by my employer and their attorneys that represented them in court to eliminate me after 15 years of an impeccable, well-documented work history simply because of my health care cost to the company. My workplace bullying and mobbing began just as I was diagnosed with both prostate and colon cancer and given 9 months to live at the time. So they were self-insured and they wanted me on a fast track to educate my replacement as I was a senior systems administrator and get rid of me because of my health care costs. I had to go overseas and pay for surgery myself to do part of that surgery for prostate cancer because it wasn't available in the U.S. When I came back, I went back to work and I conducted business as usual, but I started getting written up for too many doctor's appointments and letting my health care interfere with my business, with my job responsibilities. Although I designed the network, so I was able to work from the hospital and from home as business as usual. I knew I was being forced out of my employment because I knew of the policy that they used to get rid of employees for any reason at all. I provided testimony in support of the Dignity at Work Act in 2020, and this was provided 5 years after I ended my at-will employment and 3 years after representing myself in Massachusetts Superior Court and in the U.S. District Court of Massachusetts. I filed a wrongful termination, defamation, and interference with my business interest lawsuit after my employer stated to the Massachusetts Department of Unemployment Assistance that I was fired from my job for unprofessionalism and a refusal to turn over passwords, which is an accusation of a felony according to the Homeland Security Act. I appealed that, and it was proven that I left my job on my terms alone after being bullied for a year. I found after I left the company, I found that I sued them. I learned that the company was accusing me of being a violent person, and they went so far as to say I was fired for threatening a coworker with a gun. I learned this to be conditional privilege. Because that incident never happened. I was under the daily care of the VNA at the time. So it just, what I learned the hard way in court, that I would never be able to win a case on the current Massachusetts employment laws, especially as a pro se litigant fighting a team of corporate attorneys with limitless privileges and resources, and a complicit federal judge that refused to hear my counterclaim. The bottom line is Massachusetts employment laws allowed my employer and the same attorneys that guided them through my constructive dismissal the conditional privilege to defame me to protect their business interests, and the litigation privilege to repeatedly lie under oath. I realize I've gone over. I'm sorry, a little bit. I'm not used to doing this, but I am now facing eviction from foreclosure because all of the things that they said about me publicly have made me unemployable. I am going to ask the Attorney General in both Mass and U.S. District of Massachusetts Attorney General to reopen my complaint under the statute of limitations of perjury. And I'm sorry for going as long as I did. I have more to say, and I would love to talk to someone who's interested offline.
Floor is yours. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much. My name is Jacqueline Watkins. I'm a member of End Workplace Abuse. I support the Workplace Psychological Safety Act, Bill 1291 and 1347. I want to see employers held accountable for workplace abuse. I am a retired Chicago police officer, served for 24 years. I retired only due to constructive discharge from a job that I loved, as I also taught CIT, crisis intervention team skills, a much needed skill, thereby teaching police officers, civilians, SWAT teams, and supervisors de-escalation skills and how to respond to individuals experiencing mental health crisis. I reported bullying of a male coworker only to be gaslighted, ostracized, isolated, yelled at, demeaned, and narrative falsely changed to paint me the bully, hostile, violent, and mentally unstable. The psychological abuse affected all areas of my life as if I have PTSD. I lost 2 dear friends and coworkers that endured and confided with me workplace bullying and shortly passed due to alleged suicide. Due to my complaint and my constructive discharge lawsuit that's pending against my previous supervisors, I am extremely concerned, and I'm also pro se representing myself. I am extremely concerned that my previous supervisors are trying to unalive me and stage a suicide, as I'm getting unauthorized and intimidating visits from CPD, Internal Affairs Division, of supervisors coming to my house unannounced with intimidating visits, which I uploaded the evidence to YouTube under my name, Jacqueline Watkins, 8966. The psychological abuse has caused my hair to fall out, blood pressure to rise to critical, requiring 3 blood pressure medications, fibroids to grow to 20 pounds, requiring extensive abdominal surgery. And my therapist placed me on mandatory stress leave while advising me to quit because he was afraid the psychological abuse was going to kill me. By the grace of God, I'm here and alive. I thank you for this opportunity coming from another state and city, Chicago, Illinois. Please pass the Psychological Safety Act, Bill 1291 and 1347. Thank you so much.
My name is Stephania Alexander. I'm here to testify in support of legislation S 1291 and S 1347 for the Workplace Psychological Safety Act. I did not prepare a conversation at all, but I think I want to come and speak from my heart. I'm a little nervous. This is my first time doing this, but I'm very, passionate, and it's been so great to hear so many people share their stories, share their experience. I am currently a HR director at an organization, but for the past 9 years, I've been in operations and HR, and I have seen so many of my colleagues experience bullying and this feeling of inability to do something about it. Now in my HR role, thinking I have more exposure, and I am the one that writes the policies. I am the one that writes our employee handbook. However, I'm not able to act on these things given the bullying. So I have now experienced that firsthand, and I ended up thinking I was having I'm 32 years old, and I thought I was having a heart attack, where my blood pressure was 75 over 145 a couple of months ago, and it was a panic attack due to the amount of psychological unsafety I've been experiencing at work, as well as just the ongoing stress. And I see this with many of my colleagues, so I'm here to really testify that having this bill passed, not only in Massachusetts, I'm currently in DC, but this is just an opportunity for other states to also stand up and support this this initiative. So thank you so much, and available to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Chairman and committee members, for the opportunities to speak today in support of the Workplace Psychological Safety Act. I, too, am here today as a human resources executive and someone who is deeply familiar with how our legal system fails to protect workers from psychological abuse and how these failures silently destroy lives. I have worked in HR departments where I was told explicitly to ignore complaints that involved executives, board members, and others that hold internal political power. I know places where retaliation is considered a basic strategy, and where my job was threatened for advocating for those who are being harmed. And in these types of moments, I have to choose between protecting someone else or keeping my own job. And I think, as we just heard, this is a phenomenon that happens for HR professionals in many, many places. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how strong your anti-harassment policy is if the culture punishes the very people who seek to use it. And it doesn't matter how many mental health webinars that you run if your employees are too afraid to name what's actually happening. And unfortunately, it also doesn't matter if civil rights laws protect people with, or intended to protect people with protected characteristics, when a bully can just be an equal opportunity abuser to overcome a claim from the EEOC. So our laws as they currently stand allow abuse to persist, unchecked, untracked, and unpunished, and it's hurting tens of millions of people. If we look at the numbers that, we see reports with more than 70 million Americans reporting being bullied at work. Up to 30% of bullied workers show clinical symptoms of PTSD. MRI studies show brain scars that are identical to trauma seen in combat veterans. Folks are 1.6 times or have 1.6 times higher risk of heart disease when they've been bullied at work. And as we've seen from other testimonies, stress-induced inflammation is known as a factor in breast cancer and other types of cancers. And a large study involving 98,000 participants found that individuals exposed to workplace bullying had a 65% higher risk of suicidal behavior, including attempts and deaths, compared to those who had not. And last, 71% of bullied employees leave or are forced out of their job, leaving to a typical financial loss of anywhere from $30,000 to $100,000, and that does not include lost health benefits. So I am one more voice here today to urge you to please pass the Workplace Psychological Safety Act, to give HR the tools that they need to protect people, to give workers the protection they deserve, and give future generations a workplace that does not normalize psychological harm as the price of a paycheck. Thank you so much for your time. Happy to answer any questions.
Good afternoon, Chairs McMurtry and Oliveira and members of the Joint Committee. My name is Elizabeth Watson, and I thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today. I'm here in support of Bills 1347, 1291, and 1316, all of which seek to end workplace bullying and its insidious impact on the affected workers and the toxic work environment it creates. I was bullied so severely in the course of performing my volunteer job as an elected representative that I suffered a cardiac spasm, broken heart syndrome. I was hospitalized for 2 days in the cardiac ward with ICU care and required 6 weeks to recover. What happened to me was and is legal. The impact on me was severe. Worse, the constituents I represented lost their voice, and like you, a representative who worked hard to research, understand, and listen to them on the issues that affected our community and to make decisions that safeguarded it for today and the future. Despite the fact that as many as a third of American workers report that experienced bullying in the course of their working lives, it is currently legal in all 50 states and DC. Only Puerto Rico has legislation that effectively enables redress against workplace bullying. Bullies are empowered by the law. You have the opportunity to change that. Employers currently operate from fear of liability and therefore avoid responsibility. They are motivated to avoid claims as there is little motivation to address the challenges of the culture that bullying creates and enables. You can't mandate good behavior or psychological safety. You can't mandate a productive or collegial work environment, but you can create an environment where the liability is created by causing, tolerating, or overlooking harm, and yet protects employers from frivolous claims. Employees who are assigned, transferred, treated appropriately, disciplined in the normal course of business will show up as such. False or overblown claims are disruptive and can be treated as such. Misunderstandings can be managed by policies that ensure managers or employees are trained and that there are vehicles for dispute resolution and communication. In short, if employers are concerned about that employees are reacting as if they are working in a hostile environment, then perhaps they ought to consider the circumstances of that environment. Like most problems, early intervention goes a long way to solving the problem. Bullying has repercussions that are clear to trained investigators and to most sensitive observers and healthcare professionals. Bullying follows recognizable patterns and demonstrable effects. No one would make this up. You'd have to be able to imagine it first. The proposed legislation defines abusive behavior that causes real harm, severe damage to real people who are trying to do this job. Mandate that bullying behavior is illegal. Mandate that employers must have policies stating that it is illegal and trainings to ensure that all employees know what bullying is, how to identify it, and how to avoid engaging in it. Mandate reporting vehicles that reflect the lack of a safe environment, the difficulty in recounting the recurring actions that characterize bullying, and require a safe reporting entity. Please take action to end this insidious workplace danger that harms individuals and destroys productive, innovative working environments that solve problems and bring us products, solutions, and services that benefit us all. Thank you.
And just in advance, I hope I don't cry, but I just wanted to let you know I am still healing. Yeah. So again, thank you so much, and thank you for this opportunity. By the way, good afternoon. My name is, as you stated, Liz Gerardo. I'm here in strong support of S 1347 and S 1291, an act relative to Workplace Psychological Safety Act. Because of trauma that I experienced in the workplace, that should never happen to anyone. And I'm sorry to everyone that has shared everything that they've been through. For years, I gave all to my company. I believed in, I loved them. I still do, but I'm very hurt. I was reliable, mission-driven, deeply passionate about the work I did. Over time, I found myself in a toxic culture, one that tolerated bullying, gaslighting, retaliation, and discrimination, especially when it came from leadership. I reported emotional harm. I spoke about the mental toll. I asked for support. Instead, I was penalized, silenced, and eventually pushed out. The part that hurts the most is that everything I went through was in direct violation of the company's own employee handbook, the very document that is strictly enforced against employees but ignored when it comes to protecting them. Their policies prohibit bullying, but management was allowed to berate, intimidate, and isolate without consequence. Their policies prohibit retaliation, but the moment I requested ADA accommodations for my mental and physical health, I was written up, blocked from internal jobs, and later terminated while still in the ADA interactive process. Their policies prohibit discrimination, but I was denied mentoring, which I was medically approved for indefinitely. And for the write-up, I was denied my bonus. I was denied internal mobility, and I was also lessened in my upcoming raise. September of 2024, I used my last sick day and 2 PTO days to recover from COVID. When I returned, I was written up. That write-up cost me, as I mentioned, my raise, my bonus, 90 days of internal mobility, all during a time when my workplace PTSD and brain fog were all at an all-time high. In March of 2025, I had stellar interviews for a role that I was more than qualified for. I was told that the interviews went well, yet I was still denied. A few weeks later, I was terminated. I now believe that decision had already been made. When I experienced what was not just poor leadership, it was systemic abuse, validated by silence, protected by HR, and hidden behind a handbook that only protects the people in power. I'm almost done. If these bills pass, they will begin to change that, because psychological safety is not a buzzword, it's a human right. And when leadership is allowed to violate the very standards they demand from their employees we do not have a company. We have a controlled environment where abuse thrives and the truth gets buried. I now live with workplace trauma that has affected my health, my peace, my livelihood. But I speak today not out of bitterness, but out of responsibility, because there are people still suffering in silence. And if we don't act now, that silence will keep costing lives, health, and humanity. I urge you to pass S 1347 and S 1291 and take a real stand against psychological safety in the workplace for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Dr. Rachel Syke. I'm a psychiatrist, and my job is it's really not a job, it's a calling. It's really what I wanted to do since I was in 5th grade, and I love it. But I have really suffered from my work, not the work of being a psychiatrist, but the work of being a doctor in medicine at an academic medical institution. And I want to testify today, not just because of my personal experience, but because of the secondhand experience I have being a mental health care professional. Psychological abuse in the workplace has dismantled my own sense of self, my livelihood, and my health. In 2022, I was working, like I said, in an academic institution, and I caught COVID, as so many of us did. I developed a number of complications from that. Some of those were acute, and some of them were chronic and still are with me today. I did get a lot better, and after a short medical leave, I felt well enough to return to work, but needed some accommodations to help me to do my job well. These were fairly modest, reasonable accommodations, better support, mentorship, small adjustments to my role, and offloading of ancillary tasks that really didn't need to be done by me. But I found that those requests were ignored, they were redirected, obfuscated, and often replaced with unwanted changes. I would ask for something and be given something unrelated that didn't help me to do my job and often was more of a burden. I was then sort of systematically stripped of the responsibility I loved the most and given more tasks that I liked the least. I felt a terrible sense of power disparity, and that I tried to do all the right things. I did try to document with HR. I went through the systems that were supposed to protect me, and that was mostly ignored. People believed me in the conversation, but there was no follow-up, and my department chair would subtly let me know that he knew I had talked to them. And this isn't just an isolated incident. In healthcare and many industries, bullying is a pervasive systemic problem. People are not aware that they are bullies. They are unconscious and blinded. They hold contradictions of when they selectively apply rules or ignore them, and feel justified in looking only at what they're doing within the rules and not what they're doing outside of the rules. So I just want to say again that we need a bill like this because the systems that we have are not working and they don't hold people accountable. We need something that gives more structure, and we need something that says we need a culture change. We need to be acknowledged. Thank you very much for your time.